Hey there. So many of you know that one of my core values is authenticity and transparency. And so I wanted to come in and give a little bit of a vulnerable share and talk about something that I recently experienced and that I imagine others who are sensitive creatures and who hold space for others and really put themselves on the line in their work, um, may have also experienced at some point. So my husband and I recently went on vacation and it was glorious. We got to do whatever the hell we wanted. We got to sleep in. We ate a bunch of yummy food at different restaurants. We explored. We really just kind of flew by the seat of our pants. And it was glorious in this time of COVID and feeling so shut in and unable to do things and unable to connect. So it was beautiful. It was much, much needed. And I've really been looking forward to it and wanting to use it as a way to refill my cup and recharge and be able to come back that much stronger in the work that I'm doing. And our last night, I started to feel like my throat was closing up. And we'd just eaten some seafood paella. And while I love eating fish, I don't often eat shellfish or things like that. And so I noticed that my throat was feeling really tight and my heart was beating really fast. And I had my first real intense panic attack. So I've experienced anxiety attacks before, mostly related to like feeling claustrophobic, like something feels too tight on my body or it's too hot or I feel like kind of that need to escape. So I've had kind of traditional, anxiety attacks in that way of feeling like my heart is racing and I want to escape or I feel like I'm going to go crazy or whatever. Very rarely, but every once in a while I would have that experience. And I have tools. I'm a therapist. I know how to talk myself through those moments, to remind myself of what's real, to practice the skills of breathing, of coming back into my body and using my senses and all of that kind of stuff. And it's what I teach. I work a lot with anxiety and emotions that can feel overwhelming. And how do we manage those kind of crisis moments and come back to ourselves? And so this was the first time that I had a health worry at the same time that I was having kind of a panic experience. And so it escalated it because I didn't know if I was actually experiencing something like anaphylaxis, which can happen hours after you eat something that you're allergic to. And I was having, all of the symptoms of it, including feeling like I was going to pass out and rapid heart rate and all of that kind of stuff. And so, I realized like, okay, I'm still able to breathe. Like I'm still, my husband is alert. He's aware of the fact that I'm having these symptoms. It was really scary. I wasn't quite sure what to do. And so, my husband reminded me, that I have meditations on my phone, like maybe you can listen to a meditation. He reminded me that in many ways it made some sense that we had been on this glorious vacation and kind of finally like relaxed and let loose. And now I'm going to have to head back into the shitstorm, right? I have to come back into our world of COVID and fires and a full therapy caseload of other people who are experiencing distress around all of these things that are happening in our world. And, and a second business that I've been focused on, writing a chapter in a book about self-care, and all kinds of stuff. So it makes sense that I would feel some panic or I would feel some anxiety. But this just felt so different than anything I'd ever experienced before. And so I just systematically started pulling the tools out. I listened to the meditation, and that was helpful for a little while. And then I noticed myself going back up into my thoughts and into those what ifs and worry thoughts. And that, of course, exacerbated my symptoms in my throat. I got down on the floor on all fours and grounded myself, put my head on the ground, did like child's pose, started to do some stretching, kind of rolling around on the floor. I did some research, but in a way that felt really balanced to me, of being able to kind of notice some things, because I'm also, to be real, going through menopause, and there's a high, prevalence of women who experience increased anxiety and sometimes panic disorder during hormonal changes and shifts. And so in some ways that was soothing information, like, okay, this is validating, it's making some sense. But I also know myself, and I did not want to go down the rabbit hole of going to WebMD and diagnosing myself with things like anaphylaxis, or whatever I thought was going on. So I pulled out my tools and I used them and was able to kind of bring myself back. And then my husband fell asleep and another wave came in. And I just noticed this pattern of, like, really it was the worry thoughts that were keeping me in this physiological state of anxiety and panic. And so I went back to the meditations and went back into my body and started to move on the floor and stretch and just do whatever I could to kind of regulate my system. And finally, I was able to actually fall asleep, which was a miracle. I think I had exhausted myself with the experience itself. And what was so fascinating about all of this is that I'm literally so I did 2 separate 30-minute speeches on basically like embodiment as an act of self-care. I teach about self-care. I talk with every single client, every single session about what they're doing to care for themselves. And I just had to get real with myself for a minute and say that, in general, I'm fairly decent with my self-care. I definitely have my practices. I know how important it is for me to shift from work and clients and kind of shake that off and come back into family life, because I'm literally sitting in my bedroom staring at my bed right now. And this is my workspace for right now. And so I have to do some extra rituals to kind of release my work day and come back in. And it's been a challenge. It's definitely been a challenge. And I know that old adage of we teach what we seek to master definitely applies here. There are a lot of us out there that are space holders, therapists, coaches, massage therapists, distance healing practitioners, psychics, you name it. There are a lot of us who are not only managing our own emotions and our own immediate environment and our family's responses to what's going on, but we're also holding space for others. And what's so different about this time in particular is that our clients' stories are mirroring ours. There's less distance. There's much more room for countertransference and other issues that can come up when we over-identify with the stories of the people who are coming and sharing with us and getting support from us. So right now is a time for leaders, practitioners, clinicians to really, really, really focus on their self-care. And my self-care had pretty much kind of flown the coop for a while. It's like I knew all of these things. I was talking about them all day long, and it was like systematically day by day, I would drop a practice here. I would drop a practice there. I would convince myself that I'll do it later. I would do an act of self-care, but not be fully present in my self-care, and therefore it wasn't really useful. And so when I came back after this experience, I always have this belief that our experiences teach us something about where we're at and reflect to us what we need to focus our attention and energy on. And so I'm realizing that I need to focus on my own self-care, and I need to focus on accountability with my self-care, that me just telling myself I'm going to do it is no longer enough. I need a community of other leaders, other women on the front lines who can also drop in and be real about their struggles. It's like the mechanic who has a shitty car, right? Many of us in professions of helping are kind of shitty at taking care of ourselves all the time. And it can take a community to constantly be kind of reflecting back to us that we need to practice what we preach and that we need to take the time for ourselves as well. So I am starting a 21-day challenge, and I've really thought about this a lot because I've had some feedback from people about like, oh, 21 days, like that's way too long. You're not going to hold people's attention. People aren't going to want to do it. And I've really sat with that. And I think that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is that we have been living in this culture of quick fixes. 5-second fix. Here's the 5 keys to do this. Here's the 7 steps to do this. And I'm sorry, but it's bullshit. It takes time. It takes time to really change a habit. It takes time to actually like shed the cells in your system to be able to move with new energy. There's so many things that take some time to settle in order for us to really utilize. And so when I ask those of you who would like to join me on this journey, because this is just as much for me as it is for anybody else. I need this accountability. I need a community of other leaders who are ready to really be radical in their self-care and make it a priority so that I can do the same. And it will be a requirement to stay for the 21 days and to push through whatever thoughts are coming up around how much time it's going to take, or, is it going to be worth it? And I can't make any guarantees about whether it's going to be worth it or not. I can say that when I choose to focus on my self-care, good things happen. Good things happen to the people around me. I'm more available. I'm more present. I'm more alive. More connected to myself and to those around me. And I know that it takes time, and that 5 days is not enough. 7 days is not enough. 21 days might not be enough, but it is a good number, a number that has been kind of worked with in many cultures and systems that seems to be resonant for a lot of people. And so if you would like to join me, please indicate below, because I am feeling really passionate about this, and I really would like as many people as possible to be able to access a community and be able to keep themselves going and hold themselves accountable to their own self-care so that they can really be giving from a place of abundance and overflow rather than a place of depletion or, feeling obligated. It really, I want to be able to come from a place of pure joy and love. And I know that in order to do that, I need to sustain myself. I've been out of integrity with my own body. I've been out of integrity with my spiritual self-care, with my emotional self-care, my physical self-care, and my mental self-care. I need to get back on track. And if this resonates for you and you want to get back on track, please let me know below. I'm going to be starting this challenge. I think I'm going to give myself about 2 weeks to get myself really prepared. And the reality is it's not going to take much time. It'll be a separate Facebook group. There will be one video per day, a prompt per day, and a chance to just kind of share within the group as much or as little as you want to about your own process, what you're discovering, what you're finding, what you're using for your self-care practices, so that as a community, we can have a lot of kind of a pool of information to draw from. I know that I don't know every self-care practice there is out there. I want to learn. I want to be surprised. I want to find out that something that I never would have imagined as self-care has now become my favorite self-care tool. And so I would love to have you join me. And yeah, namaste.